Good morning to many viewers. Hello, wherever you're watching us from. This is KMTV, and we continue with our COVID-19 coverage. We're privileged to have with us Honorable Dixon Seboe, District 16 representative, Montserrat County. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's good that we can join you once more and for the public to be informed as we are carrying out this interview, observing social distancing, and the Honorable, as you can see, is wearing his masks. We are all fighting this together. Firstly, Honorable, how's the district doing?
Well, you cannot say anything except the fact that we are in a devastating period, and our district is no exception. As a matter of fact, our district is within Montserrat County, and Montserrat County is the epicenter for this virus spread in our country, and so I think our district is in a very tough position. We are worried because, again, we are surrounded by other communities that have already started to receive some cases, and so we are on edge.
Yesterday we toured the district, especially after the 3 p.m. deadline, and we noticed that the borough of Newton wasn't like the way we know the borough to be in terms of the population. People are so far following the measures. What are additional information you're providing to them?
I think the borough of Newtown has learned from the Ebola case. In the Ebola scenario, because of how hardly hit we were, people are taking this very seriously. And so some of the things that we've done is to make sure we work with the offices of the governor, the offices of the young people. We have the Federation of Borough Youth to do massive awareness. And so people are aware of the intended danger from this pandemic, and so everyone is taking it very seriously. And so I'm grateful that the guys in Borough of Newtown, and indeed the entire district number 16, are on top of their ball game as far as staying home is concerned.
Movement is actually of concern, especially people in that area will have to go to the Douala market or surrounding local markets to have something to eat. The issue of hunger. Other communities are reporting that. How is it like in your district, especially in Newtown?
So, you see, I'm thinking about this on a more holistic perspective, from a more holistic perspective. Fortunately for Newtown, we were able to get some food for a few vulnerable old people through intervention that was done by the EPS through the Office of the President. But that is not enough. It doesn't move the needle. So in my view, we need to do a lot more as a government, and fortunately I've just received the justification as sent by the Office of the President on this entire, which has got an attachment that has to deal with a stimulus package. So I would think that though we need to look at the two documents separately, the stay-home order and its approval, and a stimulus package on the other hand, but I think it is a step in the right direction so as to ensure that if we mean that people should stay home, we need to do our best to give them the minimum help we can give them that will encourage them to stay home. And so I think from a more holistic perspective, I think that's the direction we are in.
What are some of the strategic points or issues indicated in this particular document?
Yeah. Okay. So the first part of the document, the president tries to give us the justification, which is an open secret, that we all have to stay home in an effort to curb the spread. From the implementation point, I'm thinking that we are not getting there from the way things are being done. So I would think, and I've already spoken to the Minister of Health, the head of MPhil, and he understands my position that we need to think about this stay home with the mindset of what do we want to achieve. So if people have to go out between 6 and 3 o'clock, do we achieve not spreading? Because if I went to Douala, for example, and I encounter someone who has a disease, it means that though my family is sitting home, I will come home with the disease. So we need to look at it from a more strategic point of view in terms of achieving what we want to achieve. The second part of the document, as I said, is a conglomeration of a stimulus package that has to do with feeding on the one hand, ensuring that loans are paid for marketeers, ensuring that we have got electricity and water. So that we need to consider in terms of how we get the source of funding, because again, if we are dependent directly on our budget, we need to know what fiscal space that we have, whether our budget can fund it. But from the lookout, there are going to be some gaps that are already being committed, have already been made by some international partners to fill them. So we are going to be looking at the entire documentation, because every sector of the environment is going to be affected. Even those who work in the private sector are being affected. A lot of them are staying home. We need to find a package that will deal with everyone to a particular extent. It's not equally, but at least someone will have some feel of the stimulus that we're going to hit them directly.
People are complaining, already raising issues, as a matter of fact, relative to the supply of electricity. And as part of this document, the main people that should benefit, the ordinary people who just cannot afford, they are the ones that are not benefiting from electricity.
So one of the things the executive did before even sending this document is to make sure they work along with the Electricity Corporation, and they've already made an upfront 4 million payment, and I'm sure the rationale for that is to ensure that during this period, households do not pay electricity bills. Hmm? So that's just one side of the discussion, because the better side of the discussion is it going to be available? So as member of the house, the fact that we're going to be in section, our work now is to be able to ensure that oversight is seen such that LEC there's benefit for the money that we pay. So we want to ensure that all of those environments, especially the environments that are very crucial, the Negro towns, the Logan towns, the West Points, electricity throughout the period.
This is very crucial. How soon do we expect, though, is very critical, and some other sticky issues the brains will have to get to work. How soon do the people expect lawmakers to come up with some quick conclusion on this matter,
Well,
so we can take
we have got 72 hours, and the 72 hours started clocking since yesterday.
Okay.
And so before the end of today, we have gone the first 24 hours. We are going to be working around the clock to ensure that between now, before this 72 hours is clocked off, we give the relevant approval. I mean, the approval is a given matter. This is an epidemic, and it's a epidemic that we cannot overlook, and so the necessary approval is going to be given. On the issue of the stimulus package, we need to have a discussion with the executive to see whether they want this to be done concomitantly. That is, the stay home and the stimulus. If that has to be done, it means that, in my view, we must have a committee that's going to comprise of people from the legislature and the executive, so that we sit down and put a holistic package together. As it looks right now, it only talks about food and payments of loan for some people and debt waivers and all of that. How do we get together now and have a total amount that it's going to cost? Because once you know the total amount it's going to cost, then we got to ask ourselves the hard question: where do we take the monies from? And in my view, if we have to do this concomitantly, we must have the two parties sitting down so that we'll put the numbers together and find the resources necessary for this to be done.
As this is ongoing, is in the making, some health workers who are on the front lines have already started complaining about payments. Has this drawn the attention of the national legislature?
Okay, so you see, and that's why I'm saying this has to be holistic. From the stimulus point of view, it doesn't say anything to us how we're going to manage the health system in terms of female salaries and PPEs and all of those. Those are hard questions that need to be answered. So if health workers who are on the front line are beginning to cry now for salaries, then there's a loophole, and you don't want that in a crisis period. So I would think that if that is the case, it's going to be one of the things that's going to be raised when we meet with the minister, because we have said that the minister of health and the head of MPhil need to come to explain to us how they intend to manage this process in terms of logistics to health, management, and everything else. So that's going to be one of the issues that will be raised, and we need to make sure we find the monies associated with that.
Any comment to Liberians, especially looking at the fight the president has called on every individual in this country to help in whatever way you can? Any piece of advice to Liberians?
I would think we need to take this very seriously. It's an epidemic that has put the entire globe behind by years. And considering our fragile health system, we need to ensure that we take those pieces of advice, the social distancing, staying home, even more seriously, because you don't want to get to the point where the amount of cases increase such that our health system is overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
It means it's going to cause more death. It means it's going to cause more spreading. So for now that we are still on a 60 confirmed cases and 6 deaths, we need to exercise all of the restraints. It's going to be a difficult thing. Nobody wants to stay home very long, but also because of the prevailing circumstances, I will call all Liberians to join us who are in the governance structure to ensure that we sit home, ensure that social distancing is practiced to the maximum, because this is the only remedy. It has worked in other countries. Today, Italy is on the turn down in terms of the amount of spread, in terms of those who are hospitalized, because of social distancing. In the U.S., it's covered right now because of social distancing and staying home. We need to do that. Liberians, if you cannot do anything during this period, we must all do social distancing and stay home and washing our hands as often as possible.
Finally, to the joint security team, they've already started arresting some guys impersonating as a security personnel, especially in the local communities. Any piece of advice to the joint security team?
I think they are doing well. They need to do more from what I see.
Mm-hmm.
What I've seen so far is that the joint security is more or less in the streets. I mean, in the main streets than in the communities.
Okay.
And in those communities, a lot of people are making use of misbehaving. I mean, acting as if they are security people and harassing our people. So if the joint security can make some rounds into the very communities, I think that's going to help. But again, Liberians will have to get serious. You cannot be using a health issue to be able to as a means of stealing from people or harassing people. This is a serious matter. You can put yourself at risk, because most of them who go for marks. And that's another issue that the joint security must consider. Mm-hmm. We see a lot of police people, a lot of army people who are in the streets, and they are trying to take people out of the streets, but they themselves, they are not wearing masks. That's so much pain. In the U.S., more and more police officers have died because they are first responders. We don't want that kind of situation. So I'm going to be calling on the joint security to ensure that they enhance their capacity in terms of the PPEs and or masks that they'll be using in the public.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
District 16 Representative Dixon Seboe speaking to us live from his office. Many thanks for following us, including your comments. And please keep watching KMTV, because we are just everywhere. I'm Julius Conton along with Godfrey Nanam Badu Kwanzaa. Bye-bye.